Yeah, no problem.
All
Hi
right,
guys.
we are live.
Hey,
Hello.
I'm Yaron Betan here. I'm with William Bryan on his show today for Takeout Comics. Hey William, how's it going?
I'm doing good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This is my show right now, but
Yeah,
we're going on your show afterwards.
yeah. Mine are they're usually pre-recorded, so it's not going to go live. But this is actually my first live on StreamYard, so I mean it's pretty awesome. I love the program. It's great for people like us to be on here. I think just to have chats, live chats in front of other audience members and people who follow us. You've done some great work, so I'll talk about your stuff on my show. But
Yeah, thanks.
yeah.
Um, just want to ask you, what got you into doing comic book stuff for documentaries?
Yeah, so I mean, we started. I actually, it's funny because I came from a film and TV background. I did go to an art school, so did life drawing, did everything, the traditional art school way. Lived
Mm-hmm.
very much the art school confidential type of scenario, I guess, for me. And it's funny because I always compare like whether it's jobs or school or things like that to other movies that people know of. Like, sorry about my phone going off. It's
Oh, oh.
unexpected. But yeah, just with regards to that, it's funny. I got into comics because I've always had a love for comics. I used to collect comic books as a kid growing up. Whether it was the Marvel DC stuff, which I started off with, but grown over the years into a lot of independent work, whether it's Canadian work, whether it's international work, whether if it's manga or just U.S. based work as well. There's a lot of really cool indie artists out there, Canada, U.S. alike, globally alike, and it's. I've always had a passion for it. I actually wanted to become an animator for Disney since I was a kid, and realized I couldn't sit down at a desk all day drawing the same image. Went to check out Sheridan College, looked pretty cool, but at the time, I noticed that it's not what I wanted to do. So I figured film and media was an easier way to get into it. And it was an easier way to tell a story because you just point and shoot. That's what at least I thought. Until I
Mm-hmm.
went to film school, and then you realize there's a lot more than just point and shooting, right? But so yeah, that was kind of part of it. And then go and behold, in 2016, like I'd produced a bunch of films before Heroes Manufactured. I actually had my own office for about 5 years in downtown Toronto, where I was renting out film equipment. I had a camera at the time. It was called the Red Cam, which is actually it's a really interesting story. They were created by the guys behind Oakley, like the Oakley glasses, because I guess the lenses and whatnot. So they started getting into creating these cameras called Red Cams, which were the first 4K cameras in the market. And I had one of them in Canada in Toronto. I was one of the early guys. I had a buddy of mine, Ben Goldenberg, who was featured on my show a while back, but he kind of introduced me to it, and then we started renting them out together at my office. We kind of became a team, 3 or 4 other guys, and we had a fleet of cameras we were renting out. That's how I got into film. Did a bunch of low budget indie productions. Worked as an actor years ago in a few movies. And oddly enough, they were comic book gaming movies, but that was just by chance. So I mean, because almost everything these days in Hollywood is based on a comic book or whatnot. So, and then eventually in 2016, I produced Heroes Manufactured, which was kind of I feel like a way for me to grow up and realize this is actually what I love. I love comic books. I love the scene. And the first time I went to a convention was in 2015, which was quite late in my game. But I realized how I love the scene, the industry, and being Canadian, being born and raised here, I have a certain love for Canadian work. So yeah, that kind of got me into knowing the history of Canada, and I can say I was inspired by other movies as well. Like there was a great indie film called Comic Con, A Fan's Hope, and that kind of inspired me into making Heroes Manufactured, but telling my own story. And go and behold, we were able to meet a lot of really interesting, unique people, and meeting more people along the way, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I got the film a few years back, and I watched it, and I was quite impressed how well it was shot. It just flowed really well.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. And that's the thing. Like I tried to bring my film training into it, and and I've always directed, but I've always also produced. And I'm kind of a producer slash director, so I tried to bring a lot of unique people on board for the film. I will say that the majority of the time, it was me out there shooting stuff with my crew. But I have to say, we had an amazing crew that, like, throughout the process, were consistently there. We worked with a few co-production companies, Key West Video, which did some amazing work with us from the beginning. King Sky Productions, which did some great post work for us, and yeah, I mean, we ended up getting it at It was screened at Cineplex, Imagine Cinemas, back in like 2017. So we got it screened on the it was on the big screen for at least a month, which was nice here in Toronto mostly. But we had it featured in over 50 international film festivals, which was what really got us out there with the movie. We won about 10 awards, so it was nice to have that, kind of take our word out there, not just locally, but internationally. And it's funny because I meet people now all the time. One of the guys I interviewed a couple weeks back was telling me he first noted, and he's from like this one guy, Riley Weber, who's a lot on our Facebook group, but he said he saw us on Amazon Prime, and he watched the movie, loved it, and he's from Oregon, right? So it's like you meet people from everywhere, and it's pretty cool like that. We had it screened in Vancouver, in New York, in San Diego, in Miami. So it's been kind of a nice little journey since the making of the film. So I do have to give a lot of credit to our crew, our cinematographers, our editors. They've always been great since the beginning. So.
Nice, nice. Now, how did it look on the big screen? Because I heard about it being going on the big screen. Did it?
Yeah, we had a nice showing. Like at Cineplex, I was there at least for three or four screenings of the entire 2 weeks that it was running there. And our opening night, obviously, that was the big one, and then there was another one right after that. So we stuck around for that one as well. And we had, I'd say that the opening night, we had probably about at least 50 to 60 people there. And that was in our first screening. The second screening, also about 50 to 60. So you're looking about 120 people in total that we had over a span of like 4 hours.
Right.
That was awesome. And then another really cool surprise, we were at the Oakville Film Festival there. And we had a crowd of people like lining up to see the movie there. It was nice. It was at the film.ca theater. Who actually, it's funny enough that guy ended up being my client after for something else, because I work in advertising and marketing for many years. So you just connect with people, right? But yeah, we had a flood of people. Mike Ruth was there, another Canadian artist. He came out to support. Andy Stanley from AH Comics was there. He's an Oakville, well, he was an Oakville resident at the time. I believe he's out in Cambridge now. Where you're in Cambridge, right?
Yep, I'm in Cambridge.
Yeah,
I'm in the south end of Cambridge. That's Galt, because
nice.
Cambridge used to be 3 different towns.
Yeah,
Cambridge
is an awesome little town. I love that area. I remember when I went out for the first time. There was that little mall there with the hockey ring in there, and I was like, "Oh, This is so cool!" Like I've never seen anything like that in Ontario or in Canada alone. So I was like, "This just shows how Canadian Cambridge really is." The fact that their shopping mall has a huge ice rink in it was amazing. It felt like a part of Canada that I've never been to. So, and it's just down the road for me. So, I mean, it was quite interesting because I'm in North York, right? So for us to just hop on the 401 and we're an hour and 20 minutes away, right? It's not that big of a deal. So that just probably tells people how much I speed on the highway if I can get to Cambridge in 100 in an hour and 20 minutes. But yeah, so I mean, I tend to speed a little too much, but
yeah. Most people on the roads usually do.
Yeah, well, now they're gonna have those cams, those speed cams coming out. So I warn everyone out there just in case, stop speeding because it's not good, right? But yeah, no, it's awesome. I love Cambridge. I being out at the Comic Arts Festival where I met you for the first time. That was an incredible experience. I mean, and being in that, you know, being part of the movie and everything. So it was a fun experience to see everyone, see all the indie artists just go out there and do their thing. I loved it personally. So
yeah, it was nice meeting you there too.
Yeah,
you know, finally seeing the film.
I still have the first copy that you gave me. I think it was. Honestly, it was. I think you gave me a number 2 of Max Burger PI at the time, but and I still have that signed. It's somewhere in my pile of comics, but I definitely kept that over the years. It's awesome to have that. So
yeah, great. Now, got a question for you. Are you going to be doing a second Heroes Manufactured?
Yeah, that's the goal. The goal is to actually do a trilogy eventually of movies. We do have the TV show that's coming out at the end of this month, actually, so it's going to be pretty big. That took us almost 2 years to make because it was a lot of traveling, it was a lot of coordinating in between work and in between this and that. It's taken us some time, but it's going to be for the show. It's going to be a 6-part kind of mini series. Maybe first season, and we'd like to do more seasons of that, longer seasons as well. But now with the live show, that's kind of taken some time as well. So we'll see where it goes. Maybe we'll do a Kickstarter for it eventually. I've been slacking off on Kickstarter. I got to do that, or Indiegogo. We'll see. But there is definitely a separate of the show. We want to produce a sequel and eventually a part 3 as well. And it's interesting because I think the second film will be a bit different in terms of what we're focusing on. Like the first film was kind of focusing on artists breaking into the scene, Canadian artists breaking into the scene. But it's not. I feel like as much as we have a Canadian content, it kind of takes it out of just Canada because we featured Stan Lee, we featured a lot of the U.S. Marketplace that's involved with the Canadian marketplace. So I like to focus on the business of the scene. I come from a business background as well. I work in sales and marketing. That's kind of my background. So I'm a weird amalgamation between the comic book art world. I've always been like that, and the business world. What actually makes money, how it makes money, and trying to understand that scene. So I think for the next film, my big focus will be more about kind of the commerce of comics in many ways, and that's just kind of a hint. I think there's going to be a lot more around the value of certain comics, and maybe that as a focus, but also looking at obviously independent comics still, and what brings value into some of these comics. Why the indie artists, why some of the mainstream artists, and how they were indie artists at one point as well. Broke into the scene and got to a level where their work is valued, right? Where people actually see the value in the art. Because I find that unique. I mean, the fact that we buy things and we cherish art in a certain aspect, where it has a value, where it has a number to it. I find that really unique. I mean, it's something that I've practiced over the years. I've definitely purchased some artwork, original, unique art, whether it's splash pages or just comics that are signed by specific artists that I've got a collection of Stan Lee books for years that I've held close to me. So I'm there's definitely something there that I just admire and I love about comic book collecting, about all that. So it's the commerce of comics, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've collected a lot of artwork too.
Yeah.
Probably see a page behind me.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can't tell what it is, but it looks awesome.
The light is bouncing off it too much, but it's a John Byrne piece.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah, he's got a sign there. It says to cousin William John Byrne.
Oh, there you go. So you're related to him?
Well,
or is that the
joke? Maybe by name.
No comment. That's awesome.
But it's so cool. A friend of mine, a guy who owned Now and Then Books.
Yeah.
It was a comic book store in Kitchener. He was the first comic book retailer, and he actually took that down to the States for me and had it signed for me.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, he's a great artist. He's big on Marvel stuff, I think, from what I remember. Correct?
Yep. And then he moved over to DC and then revamped Superman.
Superman. Yeah. No, he's awesome. He's awesome. Yeah, he's done a whole bunch of shows. But and that's the thing. Like, I love pages, and to me, with certain pages, it doesn't have to be a specific artist. I mean, I think I have some Mark Bagley pages, which was kind of cool to have. Nothing crazy, but I just love good artwork, right? Like the one thing I got to see, and you guys will take a look in the new show that we have. Episode 5, I believe, is in New York City. Either 4 or 5. I have to double check that, but I believe it is episode 5. And we go to an art gallery. It's one called Metropolis. That's based out of the U.S. It's based out of New York City, and we really just get a sense of the work that this guy holds there. Absolutely incredible stuff. I think I saw the first cover of the first appearance of Swamp Thing, which is House of Secrets '92. So to see that, in the flesh was just wow. And Frazetta's work was there. It was just like wow. I was like amazed by everything that I saw in that little gallery. So if you want to see some really cool stuff, definitely check out the new show, Heroes Manufactured, Creators Unleashed. And it's a unique show because we actually ended up going touring the U.S. And Canada. We started off with our usual Fan Expo, Toronto Comic Con scene. Went to Niagara Falls, did that just like in the movie, but we do take it further than that. So we kind of show you the next year of what's happening in the Canadian scene, but then we go right into Detroit. We do Miami, so like Fort Lauderdale area. There's a con there called Florida SuperCon. Great convention, highly recommended to anybody out there. So we did that, and then we went to New York City Comic Con. Which was just an amazing experience, and then San Diego Comic Con. And the cool thing about our San Diego episode, it's our last episode, so definitely if you want to watch the show chronologically, it's good to watch it that way because our last episode features the 50th year of San Diego Comic Con, so big deal. And this year, since a lot of people out there are not able to go to the con, are not able to go to conventions in general, I'm hoping we're able to bring that to an audience that's looking to experience that aspect of the convention scene. So, if you can't go there physically, maybe you can go there virtually through our show. So, hopefully, we'll provide that to a lot of people, and just check out new artists, new creators. That's kind of the premise of the show, is that we're showing creators. Go out there promoting their work and showcasing who they are, what they're doing, and what's amazing about their piece or their character or their story, right? So, and I feel like I feel proud and happy to help other artists out. It's something I'd wish someone would do for me when I was a filmmaker or when I started. And I feel like there's a lot of guys out there that are great. They just need that extra push in the scene, and they just need to get noticed, right? So, for people that haven't made it out there, who haven't been in the scene, it could be something great. So yeah. So I see there's a question here. You're saying where was the artist gallery show? So that it was called Metropolis. That's the company's name. They sell vintage work, vintage art, and vintage comics. So yeah, check them out. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. We interviewed him, but he'll be in the show because we have a little segment with him there. So that will be pretty cool as well.
Hey, the only art gallery I went to see artists was Richard Cumley. He had a show here in Cambridge here at the Preston Library. And
Nice.
he had all of his Captain Canucks, the ones he did. I think it's the Eric Darren Oak version.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
Richard was on our show last week, and he's an amazing guy. He's like, he's a computer of history. That guy, he knows so much, and he even sent me some just unique articles this past weekend for if I was interested in getting involved on a documentary about someone. So he just knows he's got knowledge up the wazoo, which is amazing. I really I admire him. The fact that he was able to also produce something that's very Canadian rich, and is a symbol to to a lot of us out there, a lot of us comic book artists, a lot of us comic book fans. It's he kind of started a trend over the years that kept rolling with it. So I know with your book, The North Guard. I mean, that's
North Shield. Sorry,
North Shield. Sorry.
Yeah.
North Guard is the other
the other guy stuff.
the other guy, Mark Cainbloom. Sorry, and that's the thing when you meet a lot of people, you forget for a second, and you're like, oh no, that's the other guy. So yeah, no, but the North Shield. I mean that. But even North Guard, like if you think about it, there's a lot of inspiration from guys like Richard. And what I remember talking to Richard about this, but there's also Marvel has the Guardian, right, which looks like Captain Canuck a lot, and it's I asked Richard because he created his character way before they did, right? So it's like, did you not want to sue them? Did you not want to go after them? He's like, no, he's like it's well after the statute of limitations, I guess, or something like that. But
you gotta look at it. John Byrne is Canadian, so he's working for Marvel.
Yeah.
And Chris Claremont introduces the Alpha Flight into the X-Men stories to go after Wolverine because Wolverine is Canadian.
Yeah.
So I think he just maybe seen Richard's stuff and got inspired by it and did it.
That's the thing. Back then it wasn't about lawsuits and this and that. It was like pure pride, right? Like if you were proud of your country and you felt like you needed to tell a story, he went with it, right? It's a good character, obviously in the Marvel universe. It's amazing. It's just that now they're capitalizing off of it, right? So it's
yeah. Well, at least you can call it Captain Canuck.
Yeah, I mean we're in the line of things. I feel like Richard deserves definitely some credit there, but
yeah,
and that's the thing, right? It's one of those things that when you look at history and you look at where we came from and what we've made, I just want people to acknowledge the actual the kind of the originators of this stuff. So and Richard's awesome to talk to. He's a very easygoing guy. Just to talk to in general. So if you ever see him at a convention, definitely hit him up. Check out his booth. He's always been amazing as a guest artist at these conventions. So,
well, I've known Richard since '85.
Yeah.
So he moved to Cambridge and saw an article in the paper, and I had to go down and meet him. So that's how I know Richard.
Yeah.
So Richard's moved his studio when he was in Cambridge. Must have been about 6 times. He used to be at Grand Avenue. He used to be on Main Street. He used to be by the medical center. I had to go, where are you, Richard?
And now he has that convention, the Tri-City Comic Con, which is I haven't been out to it yet. I was actually supposed to go the year that we were shooting at New York Comic Con. We had to go to New York Comic Con because of the show. So I unfortunately missed out on that opportunity. And last year was a bit of a crazy year for me as well. But hoping to make it out in 2021. I know that they've had to push it now because of the virus and everything. So yeah, looking forward to it. I mean, I think it's a great show. Have you been out to Tri-City Con?
Yeah. Yep. I've been out there.
Yeah, well, a good friend of mine that works with Richard, Andrew Thomas. I mean, I know he's helped them run it. He's also a great guy. Another great local Canadian Toronto artist. Love his work. I've been a fan of Andrew's work since the day I met him. I actually got some books of his, some original sketches made of Wolverine, of like Supergirl. I got them graded. Still have them till today. Amazing artist. So I mean, and these are guys I've interviewed on the show as well. So I mean, there's so much great creation, great comic book artists and illustrators coming out of Toronto alone, like Canada in general, but Toronto has such a big scene. And what I love about it is there's people that just stick to it. Like, even I remember taking Ty Templeton's class. I'm a good friend of Ty's for the last few years, since the movie and all that. And you just see there's so many people that come out to his class, and sometimes they come out again to meet in other classes as well. But he really does create a scene as well in the Toronto area for people interested in getting into comic book art, and just even if you're just an artist that wants to get better at knowing the anatomy or knowing other aspects that aren't necessarily comic book related. He teaches that. So I mean, I personally went out to his classes. Amazing stuff that you could learn there. I'm actually interested. I have a friend. I don't know if you know Shane Kirschenblatt.
I'm not sure. What is he?
He's another local artist. He actually has a school now as well. That's coming out. So that's I believe they just launched recently. They were shut down during Corona as well, but. Yeah, it's I gotta remember the name, but it's I think it's like Paint with Kershey or something like that, or Draw with Kershey. But it's a nice new school that they opened up in Midtown, I believe. So there's a lot of really cool stuff out there. But yeah,
nice. Now you were talking about indie earlier, creators and stuff. Now, have you thought of doing stuff like people who did the black and white indie stuff back in the 80s, like Dave Sim? That's a big Canadian guy.
Yeah, I want to try and get a hold of Dave Sim. I've been trying to get in touch with the guy for years, just because Alfonso's kind of been pushing his stuff with Cerebus for years. I'd love to bring him on the show and chat with him as well. I know there's a lot of there's a lot of like tension when it comes to bringing up Dave Sim, but I support the guy. I think art is art, and I know there's a lot of people. There's this movement of people thinking that he's misogynistic and all, and I think you really have to read into his stories a little bit more, because there's a lot more to it. I know you're quite the political guy too, but you do it in a nice, fun way. So I admire that, and you know what? You have to have a sense of humor, a sense of fun. There is a sort of cancel culture out there that exists, obviously, that negates everyone. I think you need to like really look at the stuff before you just call it out, because I think it's worse to call out something and say it's this when it actually has more depth to it. You really need to analyze and understand a discussion behind a topic you bring up before you just bring it up. He also downplays, men in many of his books. Like I think people don't realize he has a comment. Dave Sim's books have a commentary on society in general. It's not necessarily about women or men, but it's about people and how ridiculous people can be at times. So I mean, to me, I see it as unique art that is a commentary on society, not necessarily a specific on one group of people. And I think you really need to take a little bit more of an inside look at that stuff. So yeah, I mean, and obviously, if there's stuff out there that's like hate. It's pushing out hate that I'm not into. But yes, Steve will just put let's cancel culture. I'm completely for that in many ways.
Yeah, here too.
I love Steve. Steve, you're awesome, man. Everything you say is amazing, man. He always brings a nice sense of humor to everything, and we featured him also in the Heroes film, and everything about that guy is just awesome. I love the fact that he could play so many different characters.
I'd love to have Steve on my show too, so I'm gonna reach out to you, Steve, if you're still here, you're listening.
Yeah, Steve's awesome. But yeah, I mean that's part of the scene, right? You have guys like him out there just making it fun in Toronto. I mean, I have to say, like the convention scene here in Canada and here around like the GTA or in Cambridge or in Mississauga or in Niagara Falls, it's a fun experience. Like I feel like I've been to a lot of conventions out there now in the US as well, and there's something very unique about our scene. And you can even see it at some of the big shows like Fan Expo. Being at San Diego, being in New York, people say they're the biggest conventions in North America. Yeah, but Toronto is definitely up there. I'd say we're the third biggest. I mean, we'll do your show, Steve.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it.
I definitely want to be on Steve's show. I want to. I don't know what to expect, Steve, but but yeah, it's. I mean, the Canadian scene is awesome. There's definitely there's a sort of uniqueness to the way we are. We're very comical in the way we think. I think as artists, as creators, whereas sometimes in the U.S. they take it a little bit more seriously, but. Canadians they kind of shrug things off. They're just like, yeah, I don't care what I say. If I get in trouble, I get in trouble. Like, people are pretty easygoing here. That even if you screw up and you slip up and say the wrong thing, you'll probably get away with it. I'm sure Steve has done that a few times, right, Steve? But but yeah, it's like that's Canada for you, right? Like we take things seriously when we really need to, but we also know how to have fun with it and laugh at ourselves a lot of times, right? The Canadian A. Like I don't know how many times I've been down to the U.S. and people joke around me and say A, and I'm like, oh, actually, yeah. I completely get into it. And I get into character almost in that second. And it's funny because I notice when I'm in the U.S. I say a lot. Like I don't even notice it, but I do say it. So and it's it's part of being what we are, and I'm proud of it. So couldn't care less if people joke around and make fun of me for being Canadian. I'm not a nationalist. I'm a patriot to some level, but whatever, right?
Or a boot.
Or a boot, yeah, a boot. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I know.
And it's funny because I'm Israeli, right? So my background, I'm Jewish, Canadian, Israeli. So my aboot sounds like a boot. It's like.
Yeah. Some people in Canada don't have a sense of humor. Steve says here.
Yeah. No, they really. Some people don't either. That's true. There are some very serious people here as well.
Yeah.
And you know what, I'll talk politics here because I never do on my show, and I try to avoid that. But I feel like I could do that here. Am I okay with doing that here, William?
You should be okay. I'll probably have a few people complain.
No, but you know what? I think the one point you were saying, that cancel culture, it doesn't make sense to me. It's a little bit too out there. Sometimes it's well deserved. With the whole Bill Cosby thing, by all means. I mean, the guy. It had to be done, right? Like I'm very much for women's rights. I live at home with a wife and 2 daughters, so the hashtag Me Too movement. I mean, it was necessary. I think it does. There definitely needs to be some speculation about some cases out there. Not necessarily. Depends who it is. This Jeffrey Epstein guy. All these guys. These are people you need to go after, but. Sometimes there's things that are taken out of context, and I feel like you need to you need to examine it, and you see it in comics, you see it in all sorts of different things out there. We should have a voice in media and arts to be able to express our opinion without being without having knives thrown at us. It's an artistic world. Art is expression. Therefore, if you want to be heard, you want to speak out. By all means, speak out. I'm very much for freedom of speech, not freedom of hate and freedom of crime, but these are ideals that I grew up off in the 90s, and I may not like everything I hear out there. I may not agree with it, but at least I know that I have a voice as well, right? So if I have a voice and they have a voice, and I don't have to, I can speak my opinion and say what I have to say. That's how we get to understand each other, get to educate each other, and teach each other what things are actually about. So I find that a lot of times cancel culture doesn't do that, doesn't allow you to investigate, doesn't allow you to educate other people. It just cancels things out without really getting to the bottom of it. And that's why I tell people, if you're gonna go out there and read something in a comic book that you may like or dislike, get down to the nitty gritty of it. Try and understand it before you just make a comment out there and say you hate it, or this guy is that. Before it really, I find that at least these days you have to take that time to educate yourself before you go out there and make claims, right? So,
right.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, I appreciate that. But yeah. I mean, I love the comics. I love the comic book world. I love comics. To me, it's always been kind of a fun aspect of what I've grown up with, and what I'm planning to do down the road. I'm an artist as well. I do sketch covers. I do a lot of covers lately. I have an idea for a book I want to put out there. I have a couple of ideas that I want to create. I need the time to do it. So that's another.
Yeah, it's hard to find time, isn't it?
Sometimes. Oh yeah. It's always hard to find time. And for me personally, I think I've taken some classes on layout and understanding it, and it's difficult. I applaud you for doing it, because I mean, the fact that you can sit there and draw panels and really understand how to tell stories sequentially is amazing. And it's funny because I had an interview with one guy recently who was telling me telling a story sequentially is a lot like filmmaking. It is and it isn't. I find that yes, you can understand the visual of telling a story, but there's a certain flow to the way a page works versus on in an editing suite, where if you understand it in an editing suite, it's pretty cut and go, but you're building more cinematic emotion, whereas on a comic book page, it's about the flow and the structure of the page, grabbing people's attention with certain images, and understanding not only layout but also how to make a certain panel effective versus another panel. A lot more juxtaposition, where you do get some of that in film, but in comic books, it's told a lot differently. You can't hear the person. You can physically see them, but there's certain things you can't necessarily do with comics that you can do in film. So I love the medium, and hoping to do a lot more shows, and go from there.
Well, when we're talking about the comparison between comics and movies, look at the Incredible Hulk movie. Trying to think of his name now. My brain is going blank.
Was it the Edward Norton one?
It was the one, the guy that went into Star Trek.
Eric Bana. Eric Bana.
Yeah, that Incredible Hulk one.
The one that everyone doesn't like, apparently. I don't hate that one, but it was Ang Lee, the guy who did Brokeback, and did a whole bunch of other great movies. But that was a unique movie.
I liked it. I liked it. I didn't mind it too bad, but it was just the way he was trying to do panels sometimes just didn't work.
You know what? It was interesting. He was trying something new. didn't hate it. It was just it was very CG, very like even I mean, if you look at the evolution of the Hulk from then until now, you see quite a big difference. But again, I didn't hate it. Yeah, I mean, Todd here said, or sorry, Todd Sullivan has great layouts in Tommy Gun Banshee. I don't know what you mean by that, but similar to cinema. But yeah, I mean, I think Ang Lee has a unique style. I think the Green Hulk that he created was fun. It was more like the comics in many ways, but in other ways it wasn't at all. And you know, for its time, it was a great little film. And I mean, I love where they've taken it. I worked as an extra years ago on the Incredible Hulk, the Edward Norton version here in Toronto. They shot it at U of T. So yeah, and that's the thing. Like a lot of Marvel movies were shot here too. X-Men 1 was done here. X-Men 2 was done in Canada. I don't know if it was in Toronto or not, but I had a good friend of mine, this guy Gaurav Seth, who was in the first movie. He had a line with Iceman. So it's a lot of like really unique Canadian comic movies here. Scott Pilgrim was shot in Toronto as well, another big Canadian comic book movie. So you know, there's definitely like I feel like we're lucky to be around Toronto because of the Hollywood North. There's a comic book north as well, right? And people acknowledge that it's we have huge names. Todd McFarlane. The fact that I mean, Drew Richard was talking about him last week, and he was saying, you know, he went with Todd the first time to San Diego Comic Con. Like, that's the relationship Canadians have. It's like, yeah, you could be famous, you could be known and this and that, but we're like all in each other's backyards. We're all in each other's front yards. You know, we're very easy to talk to, I find, and even the fact that I mean, over the years, if you look at celebrities coming up to Canada, they like being here because it's easy. Like people don't harass them here. It's not like in the U.S. Oh, they get there's a little bit of starstruck, but they're not. They don't feel like they're they're getting harassed or anything like that. I mean, I'm sure it's happened once or twice here before, but it's more rare here than it does happen in the U.S. Right? So yeah, definitely more approachable. Yes.
Yeah, we're more approachable.
But yeah, so and that's just the way it is. Like we met a lot of celebs in the show, in the movie, and they're very approachable too. Like, you know, talking to Lou Ferrigno, who I believe lives in Hamilton or something like that, but or has lived in Toronto. Very easy guy to talk to, very nice guy, very down to earth, and you know, these are guys out there and he played the original Hulk, right? That guy is Hulk. Like, if you want to talk about Hulk, he's a living, breathing Hulk. And he's such a nice guy that even I remember when, like, last year, I think he had a hernia surgery or something. He had something bursted or something like that. But he, you know, I because I met him a few times, I was like, oh damn, I really felt for the guy because once you get to meet these guys a few times, like he was in our first movie. He's in the new show now, yeah, you know, you really start to feel for these guys. They're not just celebrity icons, you know, from back in the day. They're actual people with lives just like us, and we don't, you know. I think once I got to meet a lot of these artists, actors, and stuff like that out there, you start to see the real side to them, to their human side versus their celebrity side, and it's nice to have had that experience. Even Stan Lee, in our first film, was I felt we got to know more about Stan from being at his little breakfast event that he had at Fan Expo, and then we had also, you know, we've gone out to a couple of his panels. So I think when you go out to panels and you see these guys in the flesh, yeah, there's an audience, but they get to talk to their audience in a way like you've never experienced before, right? You get to really understand who they are, where they came from, what they're all about. So I mean, to me, that's amazing, and that's why I love the convention scene as well. So
yeah, nice. There's been a few conventions I went to. Toronto. I
I think you froze there.
Oh,
There
I'm
you go.
losing connection. Oh,
There
I'm
you go.
losing.
That's all good.
I'm back. I'm starting to get like I watch Ethan Van Sciver, and that's
Well,
happens to him.
I didn't know what to do. Like, was I supposed to start juggling or something? Like,
Yeah, you got to keep talking. That's what they do on Ethan's podcast.
yeah.
The other guests will start talking and go, "Oh, Ethan's frozen." No, we'll talk.
Last week I had Richard Comey literally walk off set just to grab. They announced the new syrup, the Captain Canuck syrup.
Yeah.
So he left. I was like, okay, well, don't worry, guys. Richard told me I'm just gonna keep it. Never had anyone walk off. It was funny. It was awesome. Yeah. Toronto Trek was the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no, it's fun, man. The scene here in Toronto for anybody out there in the U.S. Once this pandemic's over, definitely come over because you've got a great scene here. I mean, I whether it's the small events, the big events, there's so much that happens in this little big city. It's amazing, right?
Well, there's so much going on here. Like there's the one at the Cambridge Library, Alfonso does. There's Kitchener Comic Con that Ron does.
Yeah.
And that's a free event, right in City Hall.
That's
City
Comic Con, Niagara Falls Comic Con, Hamilton Comic Con.
Yeah.
And I mean, even like in our first film, we went out to Ottawa Comic Con, which is a great show. Same guys that run the Montreal Comic Con. So, there's a bunch of great shows in and around this area of Eastern Canada. And they're just consistently here. Like there's always people putting out shows. I even go out to just down from where I live because I live in North York. They have the Monte Casino Hotel. They do that little show for comic book collectors. So if anyone's out there looking, I think it's called the Toronto Comic Book Show. But I highly recommend it for people, just collectors, like people that just love collecting. They're purely there to buy. They're not there to meet artists or anything like that. It's a great show because there's people selling it. You get some really good deals. I've gotten some amazing deals. I've traded some things there. I've done some. I got my first X-Men #1. I own an X-Men #1 1963 from there. So I own some like older books that I'm just a fan of since day one, like Hulk 181, first appearance of Wolverine, all that kind of stuff. These are books. They're just amazing. So I love it. I love what people are doing out there and how they're putting it out there. So more shows, like.
It'd be nice if the prices were just a little bit lower. That's the big issue I have with like Fan Expo.
Yeah.
$60 is a lot of money to get in.
It is a lot of money. There's no doubt. But I'll say this, like there's no doubt that it is a lot of money for people. I think they have a lot of cost to cover. The one thing that I think with Fan Expo though is in comparison to a lot of the US shows, you notice even though it's Toronto, even though it's a big show, it's still Toronto's. It's like I said, it's a big town. It's a big city, but it still feels like a little town, right? Like even when you come there, I don't know how many times I've been to Fan Expo where I see someone I know and they give you a hug and they're like, "Hey, I haven't seen you for a while," or they come and give you a high five or whatever it is. High fives are still cool, guys. Sorry, I just have to put that out there, but but it's I mean, there's been so many times where whether it's Alfonso, whether it's Steve, I'll see Steve, I'll see out there, and you just I haven't seen you since the last show. How's it going? And you just can I swear on this show?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I'm not monetized yet.
No, okay.
It's going on YouTube,
Yeah, you just shoot the shit and kind of go from there. But and that's the Canadian scene here. So yeah, I mean, it does get a little pricey. There's no doubt. Notice that with a few conventions at times, and that's just kind of like you got to pay that, but yeah, we were fortunate enough to get in with our media passes a lot on these shows. So a few times I got in free, which was good. But that's only because we came with our media crew and team, and we had, we were an accredited production company, so that helped a lot. But yeah, it's one of those things that I recommend anybody out there. If you haven't done a convention in Canada, in Toronto, go out there and do them, because this is where we're going to meet people, right? Like you're going to meet other artists and support. So Hands down. Yeah.
Nice. Well, listen, I'm going to call it an end for the broadcast.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. I appreciate you bringing me onto the show today. And one thing I just want to tell people quickly before I go, definitely you guys check out our YouTube channel, subscribe to it. Yeah, I mean you have it down there on the banner. So if you guys are going to see the rerun, also check out our new show coming out at the end of the month, Heroes Manufactured, Creators Unleashed. Again, we're exploring like 6 major cities. We have some big celebrities in it as well. William Shatner, Lou Ferrigno, a lot of celebrity artists. Mark Bagley's in it. Todd McFarlane's in it. He does a nice little thing. So there's a lot of like big names. If you guys want to check out, for sure, check out our new show coming out hopefully at the end of this summer. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on, and I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you, everybody, for coming up and showing in and asking a lot of questions. This is great. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.